kids, we are moving on to activity 10. This is diagramming a story. We are looking at our elements of plot. So we know we have exposition, the rising action, on to the climax. That's the big bang, the most exciting part of the story. And then the falling action, and then the resolution. Those are our elements of any plot, any fictional story. You always have these elements. And you know that we have these in many movies, many cartoons. In fact, all of them. We watched Scooby-Doo, remember? And it had all of these pieces to it. Okay, so every story has this. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in just a little bit so you can see it. All right, we are going to start with our exposition. We have a couple of different questions to answer here. Our first one is, who are the characters? So the characters. Our first character that we can talk about, of course, is the moose, or I keep saying the moose. Sorry, let me turn that off there. I guess we can just call him Moose instead of the moose. And he had fellow football players. Let's see, so we had Moose, and then he had his teammates, right, that were on the football team. We had Dan Blevins. I guess we should name him because he was one of the ones who, they named him in the story, so we might as well name him here. Dan Blevins. We also know there was Jerry Dixon. And we know for sure we had Coach Williams as well. Oops. Okay. So we have the Moose, teammates, Dan Blevins, Jerry Dixon, and Coach Williams. Okay. What is the setting? So where did this take place? Well, we know from the last activity that we did, it was Bedford City High. Okay. Bedford City High was the high school where this all took place. Okay, what incident sets the story in motion? So that's our last question that we're going to fill out here. The incident that sets it in motion is when Moose decides to go public, and he tells the coach, remember our go public was our idiom, okay, decides to go public and tells his coach, sorry guys, and tells his coach that he wants to carry the ball. Okay, that is really what sets this whole thing in motion. All right, so now let's move up to our rising action. Our story is just getting started, so we have some actions getting this thing in motion. What are the main events of the story? What complications make it difficult for characters to reach their goals? Okay, so there's quite a few things we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Moose tells the coach that he wants to carry the ball. Okay, that was the first thing that happened. And then we know that Coach Williams tells the Moose to keep on blocking. So basically he is saying, well, okay, that's great that you want to do that, but you're going to keep on playing what you play. You're going to keep doing what you're good at. So he tells Moose to keep on blocking. Okay, and then next, when the coach doesn't, like what Moose is saying, basically, or agree to it, or Moose isn't happy with what the coach is saying, I guess we should say, the Moose goes on to tell others about wanting to carry the ball. So he tells his teammates and other people that know him. So Moose tells others about wanting to carry the ball. All right, and word spreads about that. Word spreads, and which is another idiom. Do you spread words? No. You can't spread them with a knife on a piece of bread, but you can get the word out and about so other people know, and hear it. So word spreads and everyone takes sides. And what do we mean by that? We mean that everyone has their own opinion and they decide what they think that Moose should do, right? Okay, some think, oh yeah, let him carry the ball, and others are like, no way. They're purists. They think that you're a tackle, you should tackle. You shouldn't carry the ball. All right, so we have a few more things to talk about for the main events of this story. While Moose is playing in that important game, the crowd starts to chant to give Moose the ball. Oops. Okay, they tell him, give Moose the ball. And then, they didn't, not yet anyways. So they're chanting, give Moose the ball. And the Bears, which is Moose's team, they actually win this game. Well, they are winning. I guess the game isn't over at this point, but the Bears are leading and we're going to use our vocabulary word, hapless Tigers. The Bears lead the hapless Tigers 42-0 in the third quarter. So that's what you call a shutout. I don't know what I'm writing. The third quarter. The Bears lead the hapless Tigers 42-0 in the third quarter. So in the third quarter, there's a whole nother quarter to play, and already the Bears are beating them this bad. Okay, so the coach is like, okay, well, we're winning. If I do give Moose the ball, he's not going to mess it up that bad. I might as well just give him the ball. And they don't say that in the story necessarily, but that's what they do. So coach kind of turns his, thinking around, and he orders Dan Blevins to let Moose play fullback, which is Dan Blevins' position. And let's see. So coach orders Dan Blevins to let Moose play fullback and carry the ball. Okay, and then the very last main event that happens in the story, which is leading up to the climax. This isn't the last thing that happens in the story, but Moose takes the ball and cradles it. And that's important because he doesn't normally play this position. He doesn't get to catch the ball ever. He is not on offense. He's a defensive player. So he is the one that is always making sure that he's tackling people and creating a place, or creating the scene so that he's tackling others. So he doesn't ever catch the ball. So for him to cradle the ball, that's showing you that he's really taking care of it. He's cradling it. He's making sure that he's handling it well. Okay, so now we're moving on to the climax, and we know that that is the most exciting or intense moment of the story. All right, so what happens when Moose cradles this ball? He starts to run, and Moose is looking in front of him, and what does he see? He sees tacklers everywhere. So, the other team is like, what is going on? What is this guy doing? And we know Moose is a huge guy. He's not like a regular, fullback, or even, a normal position that would run the ball in. He's huge. He's a big guy. So for the other team to be seeing this, they're probably like, what is this guy doing? So of course there's going to be extra people trying to stop him because he's huge, and they need extra players to try to stop this big guy. So Moose is running, and he looks in front of him, and he sees tacklers everywhere, just everywhere. And he says aloud, he says, whoa. So that just kind of goes to show you, he's been playing football for a long time, and he just probably wasn't expecting this, right? He wasn't expecting all these people trying to cover him. So that's the turning point for him. because he actually got a little bit scared, didn't he? That's why he's saying, whoa, he sees all these people, and he doesn't want to get tackled to the ground by a group, an angry mob, basically. Okay, so let's move on to our falling action here. What loose ends of the story are tied up? So basically that means what happens so that we can end this story. Well, Moose evades the tacklers, which means what? That means he gets away from them. They don't tackle him. He channeled his inner, what did we say when we were talking in class? They got to have little, kind of like dance moves, basically, to spin around and get around these guys. So he was able to use those moves and get away from the tacklers. Okay, so he evaded the tacklers. And Dan Blevins, he blocks for the Moose, didn't he? And let's see, Moose ends up hitting the ground at the end of the story. So he's running, he hits the ground, and he looks up and finds out that he has scored. Okay, so he was doing a really good job of getting that ball into the end zone. He finally hits the ground after just, he didn't know what else to do but just run. And he hits the ground, he looks up, and he finds out that he has scored. Okay, those are the loose ends. How does the story end? Well, Moose, after the game's over, and he, scored a touchdown. And even though, he didn't necessarily score the game-winning touchdown, like it wasn't one of those moments where everyone was like, yay, Moose, wow. No, not at all. Moose got what he wanted. He says to the coach, and what did he say? He says, never again. Doesn't he? He's like, never again. I will never play that position again. So basically it was a moment of, you got what you wanted. That's, so just be careful what you ask for, basically. So he did it once, and now he's like, nope, I'm done. I got that out of my system. All right, so let me go ahead and move this down a little bit for you guys. If you need to rewind the video or go back and watch it again, of course, please do that. Make sure you have all these important events of the story marked down in your graphic organizer, and I will talk to you in the next video. Good job today.